Okie dokie. This week, in the past week, because last week I had that kind of issue with the pens, we've been looking at vectors, and what I'd like to do here, I'd like to spend a little time talking about some vectors. If people have any questions regarding things, I can cover that. But I kind of like to look at some of the practice problems that people may or may not have done to kind of give them a better idea of vectors. If you're watching this, please recognize that even though I don't have one on me, everything, if I'm doing it graphically, everything I'm doing is technically with a ruler and protractor. So I'm drawing it to scale. So hopefully I'll say that a bunch. As we're going through this, I'll say we're drawing to scale, we're drawing to scale, we're drawing to scale, so that we can do that. Austin dealing some damage there. Welcome in. So everything we're going to be doing, if I say graphically, we're going to be to scale. If something's not graphically, then we're just basically using SOHCAHTOA for that. Okay? So I'd like to just kind of start some stuff off where when we are drawing vectors, graphically, what we can do with that. Okay? Now, when we're drawing vectors graphically, two big things to remember here. The first thing to remember is that you're probably going to be using the head-tail method. Okay, the head-tail method is just super important. And remember that with the head-tail method, you know, if you have axes that you've created, and that's a very common thing to do, I highly recommend it. You can create an axis and then use that to kind of branch off. You are going with one vector, some distance and a direction, and then from that vector, you're going some second amount. Okay? Remember, we're always looking for head to tail on that. So this is our resultant here, and this is our head tail right there, to kind of plot out that vector. So something just to keep in mind there with the head tail method, that's what we're going to be doing. The second thing to keep in mind are vector components. And what we mean by vector components is we mean the x and y components of the vectors. Okay, so that's an important thing to keep in mind as we're doing this. A vector can have a magnitude and direction. That's the big things that make up a vector. But if we break that vector down, it has x and y components. And if I look at just the purple vector here, so I'm just going to look at this purple vector, I like to redraw it. Redraw that little purple vector. I can see that this purple vector, it has moved in both the x and y axis. It's going over some, and then it's going up. Okay, so that's what's going on there. What I like to do is I like to just draw over my x amount and then go up my y amount. But you totally could, if you wanted to, you could go up a y amount and then go over an x amount. It really depends on what angle are you given. Are you given that orange angle there, or are you given this blue angle underneath for this lower piece? Okay. Depending on what angle you have, it just makes sense to do that. Note in either case, I have the head-tail method. I have the head-tail method because I'm adding those vectors. And the purple vector here, that doesn't need it to be head-tail. This is actually the resultant vector r. So what we actually have is, whoops, go away. What we actually have is x plus y, there's the head-tail method, equals the resultant. And the resultant, it can be, you know, right here it kind of looks weird because it's kind of like head, head, head. But the resultant isn't being added to anything, so you don't need to worry about the head-tail method for that. It's x plus y, head-tail method, equals that other thing. Okay? So one of the problems in the homework set, this